Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Barron Oil is a company that's changed dramatically this year, and those of you who may have known it in the past, and it was called Gold Isle originally, may know that it had an interest in, or was the operator of a deep water block offshore Peru in the Pacific Ocean, 6,000 feet of water, $100 million wells. We were committed to drill 2 of them, and we were sort of a £5 million company. So it wasn't really ever going to work. Unfortunately, we farmed out in 2013 to a Uruguayan private equity group who committed to drill the 2 wells, but actually had intended to turn it very quickly and farm it out to somebody else, which they failed to do. So for 4 years, we sat there trying desperately to get some activity, unable to farm out to anybody else because we already farmed out to a group who weren't spending any money. And eventually, at the end of 2017, we managed to default them out. We managed to relinquish the block. And more importantly, we managed to get back the guarantee bond that we had in place in Peru. There was a little clause in the contract that said if you've been in force majeure for more than a year, you're entitled to recover your guarantee bond even if you haven't done the work program, which we hadn't. Peru Petro didn't know about that, but when we pointed it out to them, they did actually give us our money back. So as a result of that, we started 2018 with $5.2 million in the bank and a new start. And our shareholders told us, well, we've been waiting for God knows how long to see some activity. So please go out and get involved in something that we'll see some activity in the near term. And so we got involved in 2 projects, which you may be familiar with from other companies. They're both projects that I knew personally quite well. Coulter is a prospect that I actually generated in the first place in 2013 with a different hat on. So it's something we know very well. And the Wick well is a very interesting prospect off the northeast coast of Scotland. They're both very close to shore. They're both prospects which were due to be drilled very quickly. They're low risk because they're up dip from existing known oil and close to infrastructure. So the Wick prospect is about the location is about 2 kilometres offshore the coast of northeast Scotland. It's up dip from the Libster accumulation. So there was oil, there's known to be oil there. The Libster accumulation was developed and was flowed for a while and started getting more waxy than they thought it was and more gas than they thought it would have. So it's currently shut in, but it has a development location. It has a decent sized a decent sized plot of land onshore, which is actually a development site. We're going to drill the Wick location up dip from Libster. Libster appears to be full to spill point, and we're just going to be drilling up dip from it on the big red blob at the top there. And we'll drill a vertical well, a disposable well. We'll test it with downhole testing equipment, but we won't flow it. And if it works, we'll most likely develop it from the shore. If you look at it on the seismic, those of you who understand these things, Libster is on the left-hand side there. It's a little bump, and you'll see that there's oil in there, and it spills and goes up into a very large, very thick closure at the top there. It's not without its risk because it is very shallow. It is an area which is complexly faulted, so there's some seal risk. And it's also an area where the reservoirs are quite variable. But because we're so high up, we have a very thick sequence of reservoirs to choose from. We think that there's also underneath it a deeper prospect, which you see on the lower slide there, which we haven't. We need a bit more seismic work on that. But we think between the 2 of them, there's maybe 250 million barrels of oil in place if they work, and we would expect to be able to recover maybe 20% or so of any oil in place there. So it's a nice little thing. It's one of these things that you look at and you think that needs to be drilled. It just sits there and throbs at you. Sorry, I'm a geologist, so I can't help that. The other prospect we went into is the Coulter prospect, which, as I said, I was involved in. In fact, I did generate the prospect in the first place. It's the first fault block downthrown from Witch Farm oil field, 500 million barrel oil field. And there's a well on it, 9811-3, on the edge of the Coulter prospect, drilled in 1986 on 2D seismic data that had a 10.5 metre oil column in the Sherwood sandstone, which is the main reservoir in Witch Farm. There's another well drilled over on the left there of that field, of that small green blob on the left, at Old Harry, which had a small column of oil with the same oil-water contact. So it's possible we might be looking at a much larger prospect than we've drawn up there. And it's close to Witch Farm. You'll see the light blue lines there are actually the traces of the long offset wells at Witch Farm. So it could actually be reached from Witch Farm onshore if necessary. So and of course all the infrastructure's there. Witch Farm is doing about 18,000 barrels a day now, I think, and it's got facilities for 100,000 barrels a day. So there's plenty of room to get into that infrastructure. If we look on the seismic, you'll see, I don't know if I've got a pointer on here, have I? No? Okay. The round circle on there, on the seismic line there, is circling the Sherwood sandstone, which is the yellow pick in the middle of that red circle. The well comes down to the right of that red circle, and you can see that the seismic traces dipping up from that. The lower map there is lower plat there is a block diagram of the top of the Sherwood sandstone. You see Witch Farm oil field on the right there, quite high, and then you go down into the low in the green, and then the blob at the bottom there, 9811-3, is the well with a 10.5 meter oil column, and you go up dip from that into that ridge along there, which is extension. The first part of the ridge, sort of to go halfway up, is the P50 most likely case, and if we're really lucky, it'll extend all the way along the ridge to Old Harry. So our most likely scenario for that is something like 23 million barrels of oil recoverable. The risk here is that the overburden is so complex that it's quite difficult to work out exactly what depth you're looking at in the seismic. Even though we've done pre-stack depth migration 3 times on it, we always come up with about the same answer. Until we drill the well, we won't really know how high the structure is. So that's the risk. How big is it? It could be 5 million barrels. It could be a lot more than 25 million barrels. You drill the well and find out. So those are our 2 prospects which we're planning to be drilled this year. Most likely they'll slip now into first quarter of next year. We think Wick will certainly be spudded in this quarter of 2018. They're going to be drilled back to back with the ENSCO 72 rig, but I think that Coulter will slip into the first quarter of next year. We also have a remnant block in Peru. It's a prospect which is covered by 2D seismic. It has a well already in the area which had good gas shows through the tertiary section, and had, interestingly, some good gas and oil shows when it touched the top of the basement. We have a shallow gas play there at the Mancora sand. The yellow outline, the yellow illustration there is a gas indication in the seismic, which we think is maybe 6 to 10 BCF as a sort of fallback, and that would certainly pay for the well. But what we're really looking for is fractured basement, which is the big play in the nearby San Jorge field, which has got 250 million barrels in place and is producing a couple of thousand barrels a day from fractured basement. But we've no idea what the basement looks like down there. We can see there's a big structure there. We think we can see that it's metamorphic. We can see some folding and some thrusting in there. But until we drill the well, we won't know whether the basement actually has a reservoir in it. It certainly seems to have. It has some gas chimneys coming up from it. But this is not a prospect which we want to drill ourselves. We have 100% of it. We don't have the money actually to drill it, and we wouldn't drill it 100% anyway. We need a local partner to come into that, and we've been talking to a number of people. We are a very small company. We certainly don't want to be operating a small discovery in Peru. Although there's a gas market there building up in the northern part of the country. So we've been talking to local operators. We have a local operator who will drill the well for us, and we're trying to persuade them that since they're going to drill the well anyway, it won't cost them much more just to pay for everything on the well and do it all themselves. And we retain a residual interest in it. But that one is currently in force majeure, and what we're trying to do is really keep it in force majeure until we've drilled these 2 wells in the UK, and then see what we can do thereafter. If we drill the 2 wells in the UK, we make a discovery, then we'll go and raise some more money and we may have enough then to decide we'll pay 50% of this well, and that'll make it easier to bring a partner in. Current position, we have a very small management team and indeed staff. The entire staff in the UK is myself and Jeff Barnes. We have an independent non-executive director, Andy Yeo, who's here also today. And then in Peru, we have a consultant manager, Guillermo Nieto, who's on a 3-month rolling contract. So we have no office. We're a virtual company. At the end of June, we had 2.3 million pounds. Sorry, 3.2 million pounds. And the cost of those 2 wells will be about £1.5 million to us. So come end of the first quarter next year, we'll have about £1.25–1.5 million left after drilling those wells, assuming we spend a little bit of money on downhole testing and so on them. And the well on the Peru block isn't yet firm, and we won't drill it unless it's farmed out. We have a $160,000 guarantee bond on that block, which we'll walk away from if we don't drill the well. So we're fully funded for our drilling commitments. We have some funds in reserve. We plan to participate in up to 3, probably just 2 wells, and we'll see how we go with Peru. We continue to look at new opportunities. We're looking at the 31st round around where we're already working. We have a Southeast Asian opportunity, which some of you may know about. We applied for a block in Southeast Asia on the basis that it was a block which had a gas discovery on it, which nobody else knew was available. We thought we'd be awarded it, or at least they'd make a decision in 2 months. It's been 2 years now. I suspect a few people know about it now that didn't know about it before. So the chances of us actually getting it, I think, are really quite low, but it might come through. And we'll continue to run as a virtual company. We don't believe in putting money into offices and staff, and I'm very capable of copying seismic sections and copying documents as well as interpreting them. So thank you very much for your attention.